Another episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Oh, we're just having some fun here. Taylor, are you still sick?
Yes, I used my pre-recorded
Yes,
version of that.
I thought you did. You got the allergies, yeah.
Not COVID.
Well, we'll just blame the mayor. That's what everybody else does. So,
Where's your mask?
Oh my. You're about the last person I would think to say, we're going to mandatory masks.
It was a joke.
Yeah, no. Well, we have the mayor here today, and he's going to tell us why he can't do anything about the heat. And even though he promised it during his election campaign, is that right? I read that on Facebook, so it must be true, that you promised never to have a hot summer again if you got elected mayor.
Boy, this went downhill really quick. I got a plan. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
Stay inside.
Stay inside. See it. There you go.
There you go.
All right. Another promise you made is we'll never be interrupted by trains again and traffic in Burleson. Is that what I heard?
That was the other side.
The other side did it. Okay. All right. I'll put him on the spot
That
much
came
more.
out too quick. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's all good humor. Anyway, we're going to talk about some serious issues, though. We're going to talk about the SRO issue that came up, and we're going to talk about some city involvement, shall we say, in the nonprofits and what they do for them and the services they provide and whatnot. What now?
Excellent. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, the city does do a lot of things. What led this off is, and you'll see in the ads, or at least the second ad rotation, I had breakfast this morning with a couple of young ladies that are putting together a mental health seminar at Pathways in about 2 months. And when I told them you were going to be on the show, they were very excited because they know that they can get the full support of your office. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and so they already knew of you. I mean, they were like, well, what do you think I'll do? When I said, well, I'm having the mayor on, they knew that the mayor's office was going to be on board. And so that's a good reputation for you.
Do they have, what's the age group that they're
pretty much
general?
22 to 50 roughly, but everybody can come. If you're 75 or if you're 18, it is that the media targeting is for that general group, but anybody can come. But anyway, it's good. I really found out a lot about it, and I'll talk about it probably halfway through the show because it's an example of what goes on in this town. I mean, we hear plenty about all the hair pulling and carrying on and blah, blah, blah. I guess even now and then you hear about some of the stuff being said.
Don't go there.
Yeah, don't go there. I promised I'd behave. But
Screwed that up.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, it's but this is really what Burleson is, in my opinion, is Next Step Women's Center, Center for ASD, this particular program coming up, on and on and on. The Harvest House and promises. This is what Burleson is to me, and I think that's probably for you one of the better parts of the job, I would imagine.
Okay, you know my history with Harvest House.
Right. You helped start it, didn't you?
No, it was going.
Oh, okay. I thought your church started it, though, right?
No, this was, and I don't even know how far back. But it was up.
Okay.
It'd been running up a while before I was asked to come on board.
Mm-hmm.
But the growth of it, and when I went on board, they was having some financial problems and nothing real bad. But I had a good group of directors. One of the things that I wanted to fix is donations is part of a nonprofit, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But anytime donations, you're tied to the economy. So what we did is we went to the store, to the retail store. We started making improvements, and let's go down another road. When we hired Jennifer Woods, we found a gold mine. That is the face of Harvest House, and she's the one. We might have gave them direction, but she's the ones that implemented it.
Right.
So the store started taking off, started doing better, getting our word out there, and now they've taken over the old Hallmark store.
Oh yeah, okay.
Tommy Riley has made a deal, donated a bunch of money to help remodel it and the whole thing. So I want to say thank you to Tommy and what he's done on that deal. But that's going to be huge for Harvest House and how they help people. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. Our nonprofits are. I remember I was mayor for about 2 weeks, and I said something to Alex. I'd like to get all of our nonprofits up here to the plaza and let them meet each other and see if they can work together. less than 2 weeks later, Alex comes up to me and says, okay, on February so-and-so or something like that, I've got this many people. And I'm like, my gosh, Alex, what took you so long?
Yeah, really.
I mean, that he did great. And that's really something of getting nonprofits to work together and be stronger. That's been great.
I don't know if other communities have this kind of mutual cooperation between the nonprofits, because I've been here most of my life, but it's one of the best aspects of living in Burleson is the number of people who make these kind of sacrifices and the number of people behind the scenes that, donate money, time, gifts, whatever.
Yes.
Speaking of money, I need to pay my bills, so let's talk about the sponsors real brief, at least the first round. They do this because, they want to be part of the community, but they do expect something, doggone them. So thank you, Daniel, CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Did you see the last issue of Local Life? He was in it, and so was Sarah Carlson.
I saw that. Yeah, that's good read.
It really was, and it's an accurate read. He's a good man, and his wife Amber's a lovely young woman, and they have a good family, and they do a lot for the community. And so CrossFit Burleson 317 Wilshire. Check out the webpage for the memberships and the sites and the training and the regimens and the memberships. You got it. Shandy Stogsdill, another young lady, is very involved in this community. Shandy Stogsdill Group with Realty. And we've talked about real estate many times in the show, and nothing's changed, I guess. They talk about maybe it's slowing down a little bit, but it's like going from 100 to 80. Okay, you're still going pretty fast, but I'm sure that impacts a lot of how y'all do business too. But there you are. Okay, I'm trying to get this business here with this darn website thing. All right, there you go. All right, now we go. Oh, by the way, Sherry Step Scott says good morning, and so does Sarah Carlson.
Good morning.
Anyway, Shandy Stogsdill knows what she's talking about. I have her on every quarter, and she comes in with the data and the facts, and she knows what's going on in Burleson real estate. She's a good person to talk to, just about from a real estate agent's viewpoint of what's going on. I mean, I'm sure y'all get data as a city and all this other business, but she knows on ground level what's happening. All right, thank you to Rex Russell over in Cleburne, Russell Wealth Group, myfinancialbox.com. Hit the link, have some coffee with him. Hit that myfinancialbox.com. You'll find out what he can do for you with the 401ks. The market's going nuts, and there's all these storm clouds brewing on the economy and whatnot. I may ask you about what the city does to prepare for that. But if anybody can prepare for that. But anyway, the myfinancialbox.com will tell you all about him. Also, Gayla, Southern Gym, I know your wife has patronized the store.
Don't bring that up.
Yeah, I know. She's a good customer. And next time she's there, particularly if it's a Friday or a Tuesday, she had to say hello to my wife, because last time she was there, my wife was there, but she was in the back room and didn't have a chance to meet her. But she's working there right now. Somebody's got to work in our family. So Southern Gym, a full-service jeweler on top of the Windmiller building. Sorry. They're expanding to double the size.
Now, they're moving down to the bottom floor.
Right.
In the new building or in the same building?
Same building.
Okay.
At least that's the plan. And they may end up in the new building, but I think the plan is the same building.
That kind of scares me that I know my wife's jewelry store's future.
Well, that's good.
Is it really?
Well, because you could really trust Gayla to do, not just to give you a good price on that, but she does great work.
She does.
There are people that drive like an hour and a half just to use her. So there you are. Also, Hot Works with Michelle Humphrey. I had her on last Friday, and we weren't really talking as much about her business. We talked a little about it. We were just talking about the Constitution and the Supreme Court rulings and her concerns about what's going on. So we just spent the whole hour talking about our ideas on what we think were going on in the world and politics and whatever else. It was a great show, and I think it was really good. Also, my position on the SRO issue is pretty well stated, but I asked her, because she used to be a buyer for a local school district in the Metroplex, a big one, bigger than ours, and she talked about how difficult it was just to make a purchase of any kind in the school system. I don't know if the city has these rules, but my gosh, I couldn't get a box of paper clips without a note from the Congress. It was a beating. And is it like that way with the city? Just to get something bought?
Well, RFPs, requests for pricing, stuff of that nature. We've got a service that we had several vendors saying they weren't being treated fairly. And so we're sending that out for RFPs and quotes. All of this stuff is, we serve everybody.
Right.
So we have to give everybody opportunities. Plus, it's kind of a check and balance on how we spend our money. So it's the right thing to do. Is it difficult sometimes? Absolutely.
Well, I just remember the BISD, besides their own procedures, which were pretty extensive, the state of Texas through the TEA had other types of restrictions on how you spent the processes. It literally would take you about 3 weeks from beginning to end and that's for stuff that we already had vendors accounted for. Before, if it was something outside of the contractual relationship with the vendor, it would be about 2 months at the earliest.
That's been my biggest complaint about the new job is how slow everything moves.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, it's to protect the citizens.
Well, and that's,
and I understand that. I do. But it's just kind of frustrating when you want to get things done and you've got to go through all the steps sometimes.
It is, and that's why her point was when we get to the SRO conversation about the difficulty it might be for a school system to adopt some of the things that were proposed in the last meeting. And then we have Mandy Harden, Creative Concepts by Mandy, and the mayor here has a couple of examples of her work. It's a shelf 11 in the hat and the coffee cup, and
looks like a lemon.
Well, I wanted green and gold. See, it's that Baylor hang up I have, but that's one that you look at the stitching on the hat's green and gold, and there you go. But you can drink your coffee and act like a big shot or whatever. But on a serious note, the biggest issue that came out last week was the SRO issue, and my personal position on that was well stated, I thought, in a podcast I made Thursday morning, and so I'm not really going to tread over that ground again. But the short answer is I was opposed to what was being discussed in terms of alternatives to what we have now.
Was it the finance? What was you be specific? What was you concerned about?
I didn't think the proposals would provide anywhere near the security for the kids that we can provide right now. The SRO program is with the Burleson Police, I think, is a much better alternative in providing security than say having a district police force, which I think would be redundant, expensive, and ineffectual, as we saw in Uvalde, but also maybe having like rent-a-cop type situations, hired outside security. The SRO program, in my opinion, is one of the best things Burleson Police does, not just for security issues, but it presents such a positive image of the police to a lot of young people that need to see this. A lot of these people in middle school, all these kids in middle school and high school view the police as an enemy almost, and then they deal with these SROs and they get a much better perspective about law enforcement. I know of several kids that considered and have pursued careers in law enforcement because of relationships that they built with Jack Goldman, Jerry Stringer, Randy Hicks, Mike Alley, Brad Schaefer at Centennial, still there. So I thought that was a much better alternative, and both in terms of security and in terms of, shall we say, turning the youth around in some cases that may have been leading another direction, but then they see this positive interaction with the police, which they may not have had before. And so the proposals that the two council members brought up about maybe having another method of doing that, I very much oppose.
Yeah, but there never was a proposal.
Well, they
okay. And I think let's make one thing straight. There's nobody on council that does not want to fix this issue. No, I mean none. But there's a lot of things that goes into this. Let's talk about SROs, and I'm for it, absolutely. But we'll take our lead from Chief Cordell. The cost of an SRO is well over $90,000, and it takes over a year to do it. Then they go into the SRO training. Okay, they have to be a police officer first. They have to go through the whole deal, go through the academy, go through the driving, the legal, everything to get that done. The problem is we get these individuals that goes through the stuff, then they find out when they get in the car that this isn't TV cops. So the retention on some of these kids, and I say kids, is not good. So now we're starting back over. We're not just talking about the schools, we're talking about the town also. We're behind on the number of officers we have. So first, you got to understand how much that's going to cost. And we have to be we have to be aware of the cost. We know, and we'll do whatever we take, whatever we got to do, we're going to do it. There's no doubt about that. But we don't have a plan. How many SROs do we need? How many doors do we have in our high schools? All the talk has been about high schools, but Uvalde was an elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to put SROs in every one? And where are they going to be on the site when something happens? There's all of these questions, and we need people that know to give us options. Now, this morning, Channel 5 had a deal about, I think it was Round Rock, was the teachers going to start carrying. But 77% of the teachers don't want to.
You can put me in that 77% too, because I'm very much opposed to teachers carrying in our schools.
I agree, and I was for it to start with. But the more I hear the mental state, you can't second guess yourself in that situation, and I probably would myself. This is not something that you train one time, then you're good to go. You have to be brought back through, retrained, be brought up to date on what needs to be changed. And let's go to the council meeting. Chief Cordell put security in the council because of something that happened in Fort Worth a long time ago that he was a part of. I have an officer sitting on the back wall behind me in the corner. In our desk is Kevlar. We are to get under that. There is also certain times when we take a run for it. We have gone through all of these scenarios, and it was very eye-opening. If I stand up, I stand up and I'm going to do the right thing, I'm in the way of that police officer. I don't have the answers to any of this, but I'm starting to learn how to stay out of the way. And Dan and I both, well, I'm firing, I'm pulling up. That's not a good plan. And
well, okay, here's the perception.
And no matter what we do, it's not 100%.
Well, of course.
You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. No one expects, let's say that, you've already had a proper response. There would probably been unfortunately, been a couple of deaths, but there wouldn't have been 19 because the way they handled it was so poorly. But let's go back to the meeting. This is the perception a lot of us had watching the meeting, is that this kind of came out of nowhere. It seems like that the discussion veered off into this, and we saw Mr. Johnson very much push back on it. And we saw this, it seemed like that this was not really something that the people of Burleson were aware was going to be discussed in this manner. And they had no way of putting their own input into it. There wasn't like an agenda item saying we're going to discuss the possibility of changing the SRO program to this. It basically, let's talk about the SRO program, and boom, we go over here, and we're talking about changing out, and you have Mr. Stanford want to have a district police force and things of that nature. And we're like, where's this coming from?
Well, he brought that up as a possibility, and that was to put everything on the table so we know what we're talking about. He didn't.
Well, now that we know what we're talking about, I could tell you a lot of people are very concerned about this. I bet you had some emails. I know
we got covered, and I called everybody.
Yes, that's great to your credit. I appreciate that very much. You called me personally.
I don't like to tap.
Well, right. Well, and you get into this email dialogue back and forth, and you're there all afternoon. This is you handle it much better by doing it that way. Now, whether or not, looking at an SRO,
I got to apologize. I didn't call Mary Slaney back because she always chews me out every time I talk to her. So I'm sorry, Mary.
Well, you can only take so much, but. The thing about it is, for a city council to look at the SRO program and evaluate its effectiveness is perfectly in line with what a city council does. School boards do it. I did it when I was part of an agency down in Austin, or a group of, I worked for teachers and whatnot. We had to evaluate the handbook, so to speak, every year to make sure that we're on code. No one really was surprised by that. What they were surprised with, are y'all really going to have a conversation about taking the police out of our schools? And that's what it came across as. And that's what Mr. Stanford was proposing by having a district police force. There's another thing that I need to also put in about the value of SROs is that for many of these young people, that's maybe the only adult in their life that ain't beating them or doing drugs, or there's other crimes being committed in the home. And so sometimes these SROs get tips and hints about what's going on in the criminal world, shall we say, or in the homes of these kids that the police need to be involved in. You're not going to get that from a rented security system, nor are you going to get that from a district police because they don't have the authority to do anything.
What Jimmy was talking about was possibilities, just bringing everything on the table. Where we're going to make our decision is when Chief Cordell and Dr. Jimerson get together, they figure out what we need, it's going to be presented, and we'll go from there. Cordell does not want to get rid of the SROs, but he wants to do it right. And also, council needs to figure out how to pay for this stuff. So, Jimmy, he wasn't hardcore on what he was talking about, and he got a lot of hits. I understand that, but that council is together on taking care of our kids.
That's not what I'm saying. And if people want to insinuate that I think they're not taking this seriously, the security of kids, they're purposely distorting it. That's not what I'm saying, sir. I'm not saying that either Ms. Payne or Mr. Stanford have no concern about the kids in our school. And if I'm accused of that, it's because they want to accuse me of that. I'm saying that what happened, this caught a lot of people off guard.
It did. It did. And that's the reason I call people back and discuss. I've had great conversations, and I think it's well received.
Oh, I'm sure, because you're not calling them up to give them a piece of your mind. You're getting a piece of their mind, I bet, and that's fine. But
I never did. I've been very pleased with the conversations I've had.
And in my little area of this world we occupy in, I didn't have people saying about the council that they were being cavalier with the security of the children and all this, but they just said this was not the right approach, and they didn't have they felt like they were not getting an opportunity to weigh in on it. And that's I guess where it boils down to it. But again, if somebody wants to say I'm accusing Mr. Stanford in particular of being cavalier with the security kids, that's because they want to interpret it that way and they're using it for their own purposes. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that this approach, if it were adopted, would have some dramatically bad effects. The SRO program is one of the very, very best things that this Burleson PD does in so many ways, not just security, but in a promotion of a law enforcement image that is positive and good. And it also provides an outlet for kids to go and say, we're having trouble at home, or, I'm being bullied, or there's a gang here that's doing this in town.
It's a great program. It really is. And I cannot see council ever saying that's going to go away. The key is how do we go forward? And that's between Jimerson and Cordell. Well, they need to start it. Okay. And then the boards will the council and the board will get involved at the appropriate time. One of the things I don't want to do is people go in there and start trying to micromanage the people that's got to make the decisions, and that's the superintendent and the chief.
Well, and I trust both of them completely for it. I have no problems with Dr. Jimerson or Billy Cordell working it out. I guess in a related point, we're talking about the expense of it.
We'll figure it out.
Well, I hope so, because I know the school district is already has a pretty tight budget, and more than the city does, the state of Texas impacts on the school budgets more than it does city budgets. See, the city budgets, I'm sure, have requirements from the state that they have to pay for whether they like it or not. That's multiplied by a factor of 5 at the school district level. About 40 to 45% of the school budget is mandated expenditures by the state.
Unfunded mandates.
You betcha. And so the ability of the school district to absorb these costs is limited. And
that's our concern, and I know they're expecting a lot of new students. They're going to have another school. I mean, it's just a fact of life. Joshua's going through the same thing. They're going to have to bring in, they lost their bond, so now they're bringing in temporary buildings. And that's going to be another, how do you manage all the individual buildings?
Well, I do have some pushback on this, and I want to be fair. Cindy McGuire says that the Mansfield ISD has authority. They do an excellent job, and they are not mall cops. They have the same authority to arrest. So, maybe Mansfield ISD has that ability, but I know others don't, and Uvalde did not. And so...
I wonder what the training is for ISD.
Well, I don't know,
or JISD?
no, but Cindy McGuire basically is disputing my presentation of that, and that's fine. Maybe I need to look at it again because I don't know all the answers.
I don't, and that's the reason I'm asking all. And I didn't. That wasn't a loaded question to Cindy. I'm wondering what the expense is. We had to train an officer all the way through the regular training to be an officer. Then we do the SRO. And I'm wondering if the in-house ISD police has to do the same thing.
Well, I guess a lot of it has to do with the money and whatnot. But no, I appreciate Cindy bringing that up. But I still. I'm going to stand by my point that the Burleson Police is still the best representatives for security and other reasons. Even if we had the money, even if we had a district police, I think it would be a duplication of efforts and expense. And when we have trained cops, I mean, Burleson PD is one of the best PDs in this area of the state.
Oh, what they did over off of Alsbury during the shooting, and
right?
As tragic as that was.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that is. That's why I want them there. Because when I think of SROs, I think of Jack Goldman or Jerry Stringer or Mike Alley. Those are the guys I worked with, right? And I knew what they meant for us as teachers, not just students, because we knew we had somebody on campus that if we had a fight break out, usually with boys, we let them beat each other up until they get tired.
That's what we used to do.
Yeah, right. And as far as girls, though, they get after it. So you might have to break it up for somebody gets killed. But I know there were times, 2 or 3 times specifically, that they were told of drug deals, something going on behind the building, and they were there to do something about it. And that's it. But as far as but anyway, I know that I know that everybody on the council is concerned about the security of the kids, and most of my respondents understood that as well. They weren't looking for, accusations, but they just really thought that this was not the direction they would like to see us go into.
This might get me in trouble on this.
No,
but everybody needs to understand the kids are first. But council has to look at the money side of it, the business side of it. And it's not just the startup. The startup's going to be expensive. When you're talking about over $100,000 per officer, okay, to rig them out, train them, get them out there, you still got their salary every year. Every year. You're not talking about a one-shot deal. This has to be long-term. So if we had to give up some roads or if we have to give up something else, I don't see that being a problem. But we have to address it long-term. The worst thing we can do is get something started and then run out of money on it.
Well, two things about the money. Everybody expects the money to be spent wisely, and people say we should not even
property
consider
taxes make it tough on us.
Right. You can't just say, well, we're not going to consider the cost. You have to consider the cost because that's the same attitude that's got our national government in trouble, and you can't print your own money as much as you'd like to. I'm sure you wish you had a little printing press of money in the back.
Put my picture on it.
Put your picture on it, on the $3 bill. You will accept this at the Burleson stores.
$30. I'm
yes,
more
boss.
born $3.
Yeah. Well, we're going to print a whole bunch.
Okay.
All right. And so, but I'm just saying, yes, cost has to be considered because you can't just say we're going to throw a ton of money on it and it's going to make it better because we've seen the federal government do that all the time. But it's like we may have to consider, okay, if we're going to spend this money in SROs, something else may have to give. And we're going to have to say which is our priority. And I understand that. But I see the SRO program as one of those things that it's not non-negotiable, but it's in that category that it's going to have to take priority over a lot of things.
I don't see any other plans. I mean, I'm not in favor of renting the security. Definitely not that. I'm not in favor, and I'm not saying there's not teachers out there that's very, very capable of carrying, but not everybody wants to do it. And who's going to decide which one gets it and who doesn't? Okay. But here's the other thing on teachers carrying: teachers aren't employees of the city. They're ISDs. That's going to be a decision having made by the ISD whether they carry or not.
Well, my objection to the guns being carried by teachers is twofold. One, you mentioned about it is not just automatic that something happens, the inner Rambo comes out and I'm able to, take care of business. I mean, that's something that's hard to even train, and much less having some, 40-year-old science teacher do it or something like that. Second of all is I can't keep up with my keys. I don't have to keep up with a gun, So,
Think about this, and you'll learn this in concealed weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that you fire and the round goes out, it goes through a wall and hits somebody, you're liable.
Mm-hmm.
If you're shooting a slug, that's a possibility. If you're shooting a hollow point, it stops at the first object. The deal is, who checks the rounds? Who checks the weapons?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm
Okay,
not a gun expert.
Who was on it was on a movie site where the lady got shot.
You talking about the Alec Baldwin?
Yeah.
Well, he's a knucklehead, but
The fact is, they had a protocol to do that. Are we going to do that here?
Well, there is also, the comparison to Mansfield that was made in the city council. Mansfield is what, 2.5 times our size?
No,
Or
20,000.
20,000 bigger?
They're at 70.
Well, they have a lot more students than we do, regardless of how many residents they have. They have their school district's about twice our size. Maybe in the future, if we are Mansfield size in a school
I think they're at
district.
75,000 population.
Right, in their school.
But they have a bunch of high schools. I know that.
Mm-hmm. They have, and they maybe at that point, but I still, anyway, I hope I explained myself. I know you did, but I hope I explained myself well, because I got criticized for saying, you're saying that we don't care about the kids. And no, I didn't say that. I'm saying this approach is not the most effective way of doing it. And that the SRO program is something that really has to be thought about and protected, I guess, or kept. And that, I guess, what got people stirred up is it just seemed like, where did this all come from? And I guess now at the next meeting, you may have people come up and address that issue appropriately, I hope. There's no point in going up there and yelling at you. But
We'll take it.
well, I've seen some of those. I'm like, okay, well, whatever I might have agreed with in content, you lost me on delivery, because nothing gets done well that way.
I don't mind the passion. It's when they get a little personal.
Yeah, and I've seen that. It's like, I remember one, I don't want to revisit it too much, but I remember Dan getting chewed out by a patron about not being a good Christian. Like, what does that got to do with anything? And I thought, there's no room for that. And so, yeah, if people have a problem with this proposal or idea or direction the conversation's going, whatever we're talking about here, then they need to address it appropriately. I assume most of the emails are pretty appropriate. I hope so anyway.
Some are a little more blunt than others, but that's that communication. I wish people would just talk to each other more. Because I don't know if I had anybody that was as upset as when they started.
Well, Miss McGuire here must know something about this issue, because she talks about the teacher carrying, and she doesn't agree with it either. So maybe I'd have Ms. McGuire on. She probably knows more about this than I do. So Cindy, you can, if you ever feel like having a seat, you know where to get a hold of me. But I do need to talk about the second round of sponsors, and it kind of leads into the next issue, which is about community support for these nonprofits that we got. Cindy McGuire is saying her husband's or she's a retired officer. I'm sorry, she's a retired officer. I somehow I knew that. I guess I forgot. Cindy's a retired officer. All right, our place. Just there.
Okay, now wait a minute.
What?
Cindy said not to be forced to carry. Is she okay with the ones who want to doing it?
I'll let her answer that question. I know that if it was an option, if it were an option at BSD and I was still there, I'd say no, thank you. Personally, most teachers I know would say no, thank you. I don't know. Honestly, she may know, but honestly, most of the teachers I know, they're like, "You got to be kidding me!" I'm not a police officer. I'm not trained for that. It'd be like,
what about? And I'm not suggesting this. Y'all, I'm throwing stuff up here.
Right.
What if the teacher had a military background?
Oh, well, we had some of those, and we of course have our OTC on campus.
That's not a military background.
Yet. No, well, these are retired officers.
Oh, okay.
No, the ROTC program is led by a colonel and a sergeant from the
I thought you were talking about the students.
Oh, no. You got into with students? No, thank you. No. I'm talking about the leadership, the commandant and the master sergeant. But also, I knew a handful of coaches that were in the military. I knew a couple of the young women that were in the military that were teachers. If it were an option for BISD, and they said you could make the choice, I know what choice I would make. I would know what the choice the majority of the people I ran around with would make. But if as far as like, would I object to, say, the commandant of the RTC carrying? That's a different deal because he is a trained military professional.
But see, here's what I like about our PD taking it. Mm-hmm. There's one boss, and it's coordinated. They train together. I was fortunate to go through some SWAT training.
Well, Cindy has answered your question. Retired officers, military background, if that's what they choose to do, no one should be forced. And okay, so
I agree.
Okay,
I'm good with that.
All right,
thank you.
No, thank you, Cindy, for your enlightenment. I don't know as much about this as I wish I did, but there you are. All right, let's talk about the ads. All right, Our Place. You know it. I love it. We love it. You love it. You how often do you go there? 2-3 times a month?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I go there.
I have little meetings there with some of the ministers, and yeah.
I go there about once a week because I do a lot of my networking business there. And if people want to get a hold of me to be on the show, whatever else, and if I don't know them, I'll meet them there. Is that like I did this morning? I had breakfast with two very lovely young ladies who were putting together that mental health seminar we're going to talk about in a second. And it's really a nice place. I appreciate what Otto does for this community. He does a lot of things for this community, and he's very generous with his sponsorship, but not just of this show, but of various events. Also, Wild Cigar. I hear you're there almost every night, closing the bar down. Is that right? No. Dude,
I'm dozing off at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I know. Me too. People. I turned 60 a couple of weeks ago, and it's like, my gosh.
I take a nap before I go to bed.
Yeah, that's right. But no, Wild Cigars. It may not be a place you and your fellow deacons, maybe one of our elders, want to hang out for a meeting, but it's not a bad place certainly. But no, it's a good place. It's a quiet place. I've been there in the afternoon a couple of times. My son-in-law loves cigars, so I've taken him there a couple of times to go to that humidor, and you see people doing business deals and stuff like that. And it's a place you can do business because it's not TV's
not loud,
not screaming at you and all this.
There you go.
It's a good place. So thank you, Chris, for what you do. He's also pretty generous with his support for these community events. And, of course, Tiffany from Local Life. Everybody knows Tiffany. She's, like the center of activity in town. Did you know she's getting married?
She just commented saying she's watching from Hawaii.
There she is. There it is. There she is, Tiffany Griffin. Did you know she's getting married?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. And it's going to be the wedding of the year for Burleson, no doubt. For Jimmy and her.
I know, but for your... wedding of the year, per your expectations or hers?
Oh, probably mine.
I can't be her. I can't see her being that flamboyant.
No, it's going to be family and friends, fairly low key, I'm sure, because it
might be. They might have a blowout. You don't know.
Well, I don't know, but she does a great job for the city. She does a great job for the magazine. I really did like that. That picture of Mary Slaney on Local Life, that caught her exactly, right? I mean, does that look like Mary Slaney? And now she does. Yeah. So it's a pretty good thing here. I'm getting lots of support here. Good on the show. They're talking to each other, which I always like to see happen because it's that's kind of conversation I like to have. Okay. Taylor, do you have that link? There you go. This is what's coming up on September 8th. I just found out about this morning. It's a mental health seminar. It's going to be held at Pathways. And the two young ladies I met, Sarah Nicole Tynan and Ashley Vasquez, two young ladies that are putting this all together. And Ashley and Sarah work for a group called Reach Across Johnson County, which is a coalition of mental health help groups. And they're going to put on this seminar. And I thought this is exactly what I like to see Burleson do, because as a former teacher and somebody still in the education system to some degree, I see a real need for this. And you probably see a real need for this as well, because you're probably getting exposed as mayor to a whole different set of people than you were prior to you being a mayor, and you see the need.
I do. Yeah. I do. What our first responders and our military, our veterans go through.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Here you go down to Uvalde. They had Texas Rangers, hardcore Texas Rangers, they had to repurpose because of what they'd seen.
Right. I mean,
I mean,
you're
it's
not
got
going
to beat on you bad.
right. And this really has become an issue. And I think one of the reasons why we're more aware of it now that you and I, we're both roughly the same age, maybe about a year or two older than me. I'm 60, so what are you, 62? We'll go with that.
You would be.
I had to throw you in the grease for that one, but
I was a sophomore when you was a first grader.
something like that.
Yeah.
But see, in our generation, though, talking about mental health, particularly for men, you just didn't do it, And I resisted
But
it.
we weren't exposed to the stuff like they are today.
Right, but,
you look at
you know.
movies and the games and stuff like that. Some of the things you see now, we're desensitized. I think that's one of our problems in
That's
our
part
society.
of it. And social media doesn't help.
I agree.
And because you get on there and and it can be kind of unpleasant, but we know that throughout the years, people just need mental health services that may be chemical based as opposed to behavior based. They just and it was a real change for me as a teacher because I saw so many young people already at 15 or 16 exhibiting mental health related issues, and the help wasn't there. And then as far as like men of my generation, we just toughed it out. And the stresses and whatever, and so finally, this is my own personal story, is that finally after some eye-opening events that kind of forced me to recognize, be aware of my own situation, I finally went to a doctor, and we were talking about, medication of sorts. And I said, well, what did they do before all this? And he said, well, they got drunk and beat the kids and that kind of stuff. So people were dealing with it in different ways, even before it became more aware of.
Well, some of this is going back to role models.
Uh-huh.
The beating and the abuse. That's kind of handed down through role models. We've taken God kind of out of our society, and that's troubling to me. I mean,
in particular, I think that when you talk about the role models, and this has been a concern of mine. This is my personal concern. The younger generation doesn't seem to have the same connection to the church that you and I do.
Oh, we're losing it.
Yeah, and that's my personal concern. But that's a whole nother topic. But I think that's just one more element of care that they're not accessing.
I agree.
Now, a lot of the cities have their own programs. Now, Burleson probably is too small to have its own program, I would imagine, right?
I don't know what program you're talking about.
Well, like for mental health issues, like a treatment, counseling, whatnot. I
don't know if there's a limit on the size, and the way we're growing right now, we probably won't be too small. That might be a question that I ask some of the other mayors and find out what they do.
Well, what does the city do with these nonprofits and other organizations to assist in their missions? What does the city do?
Okay. The city's position on a lot of this fact, we do it for one, we got to do it for all of them. Okay. We've got a program right now where I do the mayor's minute, and I'll do this for a nonprofit or this for a nonprofit. I have to offer it to everybody.
Sure.
So for us to single out one, we have to do it for all. So the city really doesn't, we don't help out as far as that. Now, the program that I'm coming up with, we will support all of them any way we can. But financially, we don't.
Well, a lot of them, it might be problematic if they're faith-based, if they're church-related. I wonder if to be...
I don't think that's really an issue. It's a fact that
it might
what you do for one,
right,
you do for everybody.
Well, it would be an issue maybe with some people in the public.
That's a different subject.
But okay. I do know that the law will allow the cities to help faith-based organizations if that assistance is not related to the the religious mission of that group, right? So for example, for the city of Burleson to contribute to Harvest House or
financially
or with goods and services, helping them with their profile and promotions, whatever else. All those things, maybe services of a kind, even if it isn't just money. You can do that as long as the government entity is not tied into the religious mission of whatever it is. So, like at both of our churches, we can have city support of an event that is designed not so much for like evangelism, but for, say, food distribution or clothes distribution, whatever else. You can involve in that, but you have to be real careful that when you have a public entity like a city, that whatever support you're given is separated from, say, the religious purpose of the institution you're giving it to. So
I'm not versed well enough to say that's good or bad. I don't know. I mean, it would be good if we could, but I'm going to have to find out more information.
Well, it would be.
Saying?
Yes, I understand. I mean, because this is something new. I mean, when we both, you've been here longer than I have, most of the functions of the city really are, streets and garbage pickup and water and all this other stuff. But now, as we get bigger, we may be entering a time where we're going to have a lot more people in need for these services, and we might need to have them available. I know at the county they do, over Johnson County and Cleburne and all that, they do.
Mental health?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's not well funded, I'm afraid, but they do have certain types
of... The county pays for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
I'll call at them.
Yeah. I don't know how well funded it is. I don't know how extensive it is. But, it's similar to like county hospitals. They support those.
I know that they're doing some great things at the jail.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to get some stuff. They actually have a program where on holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas, they have families that bring food up there and sit down with an inmate and eat with them.
Right. Now,
I love it.
Yeah, I'm sure that the inmates appreciate that quite a bit. I mean, that's got to be a terribly lonely time. Now, I'm like you. I'm not aware of all the details of Johnson County's provision for some of these services, but they do know at the county level they do have provisions for, say, people under a certain income, people that need temporarily rental assistance. How extensive it is, how helpful it is, I couldn't tell you.
I'll check into it.
Yeah, and also as far as like state and national grants, we kind of go back to the SRO thing. The bill that we just signed about 3 weeks ago about all that gun business, part of it was there's a big chunk of money for school security.
I forgot to bring that up.
Yeah.
I don't know where we stand on that, but I'm sure the state's going to chip in on some of this.
Yeah. The thing
is it going to be long term or is it going to be short term?
That's what I would caution you. Make sure you have an idea. Are these renewable and for how long do they last? Because a lot of grants rather. A lot of grants are only for a 3-year period, particularly if you're, like the school district. For example, my wife got hired on a grant of about 18 years ago for remediation programs, and they paid her salary and they got the equipment and all this other stuff. And then after 3 years, BISD had to make a decision whether to keep her or not, keep the program, and they did.
Well, in 3 years, you got 1 year to learn it, 2 years to fund it, to get it long term.
Now, knowing the federal government, who knows when that money's going to be made available, but I know we have grant writers at the city. They got to check it out because they might be able to find money to. And what these grants are really good at, more than just paying a salary, but you can buy the heavy equipment. They bought, like back to my wife's example, they bought the computers and the program and all that. And then really it boiled down to, does BISD want to maintain my wife's position and whatever updates it would take? So if we had grants for like this SRO program, there probably would come a time when either BISD or the city, or probably both, would have to, assume some of the salary costs and things like that. But maybe some of the other expenses have been paid for.
I guarantee you our group at City Hall will realize when it's available.
Okay.
I got really faith in our finance people.
Well, and this,
and that come through the PD too, so they watch for that stuff.
Yeah, in school districts, we get tons of grants, for like remediation, for special education, school lunches are big ones.
It comes with a lot of requirements on some of this stuff.
You ain't kidding there.
Sometimes it's not worth doing where they write them up.
It's you do a lot of work, and the answer may be no, or you misspelled words, so you're out. I mean, you have to be real particular. And
I had one situation where we actually returned the money because it's going to cost us more to use it than what we were getting.
Well, let's see. Ms. Carlson says there will be a presentation about state legislation in the next council meeting. So maybe you'll get some information from your people by then. But that's just an opportunity. But the grants aren't just for school security; they're also for these kind of things as well. If you had a grant for like helping with the mental health issues like the county does. The county gets a lot of money from the state and federal government through the grant process. So when you say, well, the county's paying for this, maybe some of it, but it's not fully funded by the county. And a lot of these grants are ongoing. Some of them are not. You have to make sure, you know. Sometimes you reapply and you get another 3 years.
I understand.
Some of these will say, nope, it's on you, Jack, and there you go. And
sometimes they can pull it.
They can be pretty particular, particularly the feds. I hear stories from my time at BSD. The auditors come in and they were very particular.
Like dangle it in front of you and they say, yep, psych.
Well,
so, you know.
Heard that in a while. Well, no, it's just that if you misspend, particularly federal grant money, even if it's on accident, you're asking for a lot of trouble. You know, if you like, I don't know any concrete examples, but I've heard stories about school districts getting money for like special ed and that, well, we need this money over here for something else. I mean, and it was a legitimate purpose even. It wasn't like, you know, new basketball uniforms or something like that. It was for an educational benefit, but it wasn't what the money was for, and people got in a lot of trouble for that. So it's something to think about. I do know the city, particularly, honestly, you know, Ken did this, you did this, have really done a lot the last few years of promoting community service and nonprofits. And I think that's one reason why we have so many of them that function so well here, because they know the city has their back, and we appreciate that. And as far as mental health on that September 8th, or rather October 8th, to say it right, I think that's going to be a very big event. I think it's going to be well attended. I think a lot of people are going to be interested in what is going to be provided. And maybe they can get the answers you and I don't have right now about what's out there. So. It's you know, from what I see, your job, it sounds like there's a whole lot to keep track of. And
I got really good people up there that help me out. You can't keep every detail in your head,
mm-hmm.
And so. I sat down. I got a great city manager, city secretary. It's just a joy to work up there.
Yeah, Dan was saying this yesterday. He also said, just to make you feel better, that you really grown into the job the last couple of years. He was very complimentary about your performance.
I lean on Dan a lot. He's got history of the jobs.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of lean on each other on construction jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have a problem in the world asking another council member how they feel.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, well, sometimes it gets exciting, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. But you know, we've got a lot of knowledge up there.
Well, I think you know, you really have shown growth in the job the last couple of years, and you still wanting to run again.
Yeah.
Now, I did tell you about that mental health program, right? Aren't you a little crazy?
You saying I need it? Sign me up.
Well, yeah. Well, if you're going to run again, you know, just something to consider.
No, I'm good. I got things I want to see through on our roads, and a couple other things. We've got some.
Sounds like you have a support system at home. That's important.
She's great.
Yeah,
she's great.
Maybe one time when
she gets when something's said about me, she gets a little more fired up than I do. So
why don't you bring her up here for the next time you're on a show, or sometime in the future?
You couldn't drag her.
Okay, fine. She's same with my wife.
She doesn't want any camera on her.
My wife said the same thing. You know, I've had people say, "You got to bring Mrs. Allard," and you know, no, that's not.
Nancy has been very supportive on everything. She's guarded, which is great.
Well, that is good. And, you know, to have that kind of support system at home, it made a lot of difference for me when I was going through what I described earlier. You know, it was, you know, she was there the whole time, and it made a difference.
That's your safe place.
Yes. And, you know, when this gets closer, I'm going to have Sarah Tynan and Ashley Vasquez on the show about a month from now to promote this program, and probably right before it as well. You know, I'll probably be a bit more open about, you know, what stuff I've dealt with. But anyway, there's one more thing. Oh, Cowtown Warriors. You mentioned that. Let's talk about that.
Okay. So when we had the conversation with the guy at breakfast, and he talked about his buddy committing suicide and everything, it dawned on me that we've stepped away from serving our veterans. And so with the group, and I said, you know, we need to do something about that. So we decided we was going to do it ourselves, and I didn't need another project. So somebody brought up Cowtown Warriors, and Cowtown Warriors is a financial aid.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted mental health, and I thought that's what they were about, but actually it turned out to be financial aid for veterans. So we didn't want to lose that side of it, but Burleson is fixing to be their first charter for Cowtown Warriors, and they deal with all the veterans. I mean, and they've got their support is phenomenal. They got some good money behind them. They go in, and if a veteran's having problems making his rent or any kind of fact, they come in and they help out. So that's great. And we had a float in the parade.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of good veterans up there. We had one that was 91. My brother-in-law, which is a lieutenant colonel that trained pilots in the F-16. I got to sit in the F-16 simulator.
Mm-hmm.
That was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
But we had, the float was great.
I understand you were walking around with the congressman and being a big shot.
Congressman Williams, yeah, boy, that guy can talk. I'm telling you.
Whoa, a politician could talk.
Oh man, but he's I love being around him.
Yeah.
He's down home. He's not much different than us.
I've never met him. I'd like to meet him sometime.
I'll do that.
I'm sure he's dying to get on this show. Who knows?
He has been great for me. He's very supportive. Call him up. He's got an aide, Robin, and also Don. That they've been really good for the city. But we still hopeful. There's a group called 22 Kill, and this group has been around for a long time. And the 22 represents the number of suicides that happens in a day of veterans.
Good heavens.
And it's been around a long time. The number's gone up. We're hoping to get them involved with this and having two groups. So we have the financial side and the mental health side in a package.
There you go. That's exactly what I'm talking about, sir.
Well,
exactly,
yes.
Yeah.
That was one of the things when Alex put the nonprofits together on the plaza, is trying, one of the biggest hardest things to do when you're helping families is vetting who really needs it and who's playing the system.
Right.
So everybody reinventing the wheel comes out, and they've got to learn how to do that. Where if you team up with another nonprofit, you're getting the same satisfaction of helping others, but they've already learned. Peggy Gibson at Pathway, they've got it down to an art, and they've got the mayor's youth council, city employees, other churches. The first time I saw the house I was working on, they ripped up a fence, put another fence up, cleaned up the yards, pruned all the trees, and they were walking away by noon.
Well, I'm sure they were used to putting it together pretty quick.
They got it down.
Now, this Cowtown Warriors, are going to have like an office space here, or are they going to just...
No, they're in Fort Worth.
Okay, but
they've got a website. You can go to that and check it out. I'm sure they'd appreciate any kind of donations or anything. We're working with A.K. Rodriguez. He's the one that goes out and talks to the veterans when they have problems. And
so, in effect, though, we have veterans here in Burleson. They're going to be reaching out to those veterans through Cowtown Warriors.
Yes, and this is the next phase here, in the fact that we need to reach out to these. K.T. Freeman had a program called "Are You OK?" and it was for our seniors. After the ice storm, we realized we had a lot of seniors at home. They do not have computers. And he came up with a program to find these and make a database so we could check on them. If we have a storm, we can check on them. I want to do that with the veterans for a different reason. We need to know where they are so we can send them notices of things. We have the Vietnam Veterans Deal every year, and it's very poorly attended, and it's because we don't reach out to them. We don't know how to reach out to them, but this bunch is very private. They don't want you. They don't want to be recognized. They want to be left alone. So we want to be able just to send them a thank you every once in a while and feed them.
Taylor has put their web link in the comments section.
Thank you.
CowntownWarriors.com. So if y'all are hearing this and think this is something you might want to look at, Taylor put it out there, and so you can hit the link and you can find out about them. And since you have contact with them, if they want a spot in this show, I'd be glad to have it. I'm a son of a veteran. Fortunately for me, he didn't have to go through some of the experiences that some of his colleagues did. But still, he's an 84-year-old ex-Army captain. May explain how I grew up. But anyway,
I'm going to take you up on it.
Okay.
I'll
No,
call
please
AK
do.
and we'll get that done.
Well, as far as like August, I have guests beside yourself. I have Gabrina Daniels and Sean Miner. Wait,
I love Gabrina.
oh, isn't she something? And then she brought her two new employees there, and it was just a real fun conversation about a week and a half ago. And I have some open dates, and we could try to work something out. So you have them contact me, and we'll be good to go.
Excellent.
And we'll run through the ads real quick, and then you're going to give us a last word about your blessing upon Burleson or whatever you want to say, or what you want us to know what's going on. Thank you, Daniel, across at Burleson. Thank you for all what you do for the community. Hope you're doing well. Thank you to Shandy Stogsdill at the Realty Group. I'm sure you're doing well too. Hope so. Selling lots of real estate, bringing people into Burleson. Well, I hope so anyway. Also, thank you, Rex, over at Russell Wealth Group. Hit that link, myfinancialbox.com. It'll keep you from jumping off the ledge because of the stock market. Thank you to Gayla over at Southern Gym. Hope you all are having fun. And she really is very sweet. I'm sure Nancy's told you about that. But, man, you walk in there and the lady's eyes are about that big. Oh, look at this story. So I mean, it's way to go. Anyway, Hot Works. Thank you, Michelle.
She's probably listening.
Oh, Gayla listens later. She's working right now. Thank you, Michelle. Like I mentioned before, her show last Friday I thought was one of the best we've had in a long, long time because it was it was somebody speaking their heart, a citizen of our community, and I really thought that was great. And so Hot Works over in 731. Also, thank you to Creative Concepts by Mandy, which is the creator of these wonderful swag the mayor is proud to own. He has promised to wear that hat in the next meeting. Well, not really. No. I couldn't help it. You're right there,
Such a mouth.
That's why you like coming on here. Somebody's got to do it. Everybody's walking around and they see you and they go, oh, it's the mayor. Take your hat off when you talk to him. Anyway, is that how it works?
No, I don't like that.
No, I don't think so. No, that's not. That would be.
We had the BOF golf tournament Sunday, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I had one of the best times. I played with the city manager and Chief Cordell and Alex.
Mm-hmm.
That was great.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, the best part of being the mayor is you get to participate in some of the good stuff.
Well, we just had fun. It's just nice to go out and relax.
You betcha.
And me saying I'm a golfer is a very loose use of the term.
Who I get something here, A.K. Adam Kahn. Is that who you're talking about?
No. What do they say?
He says, I'm in. Thank you, Mayor. Is that who you're talking about?
I don't know. I guess I'm saying the wrong name.
Yeah, maybe.
Last name. Great. I told him we had the meeting this morning. I told him it was going to be
well, okay. So maybe
you're going to have to get him to talk. He's the quietest guy I think I've ever been around.
Mr. Kahn, if you will, later sometime today, I'm going to be busy most of the day, but next couple of days, send me an email or
I'll get you his information. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Back to our place. They pay for this. I got to say something nice about Otto. Thanks, Otto. I'm sure, it kills me because I go there, and I say, is Otto around? And they're looking at me like, are you kidding? So, and then when he does come, he's like Dean Martin, swagging around. All right. Thank you, Chris. He does the same thing. Chris does the same thing. He walks around with his cigar and looking over his empire over at Wild Cigar and Culture. It's a hoot. It's a good place to go. It's a good, quiet place. Get yourself a smoke, get yourself a drink. You can just stay out of trouble. Thank you to Tiffany. As always, hope you're having fun in Hawaii. I'm really broke up about your having to tough it out over in Hawaii.
That's a tough gig.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's Local Life Magazine. And also, I remind you, in about a month, we're going to have this young ladies. They're going to talk about RISE on October 8th. And so that's going to be a pretty big deal. On Thursday, I have Ronnie Johnson. I'm going to have to really try hard, but I hope he'll tell me what he thinks. Not really. Ronnie will tell you what he thinks. Yeah. On Monday, I have Sean Miner. Talk about school board related. We're going to talk about this SRO program from that perspective and what they could do about it. Because, I don't look at it as like, well, the city needs to handle all of this and the school system just sit back and, do nothing. And
that'll be an interesting show.
Yeah.
Right now, we need to lean on our chief that has the expertise. If we need to bring some experts in, maybe they will. But,
Well, the good thing about about Sean. He's been on the board 12 years, and so he knows all about
I didn't
this.
realize that.
Yeah, he's been and Sean and his family have been they're old-time Burleson residents. I mean, he's a graduate of BHS, big football star, and this is before I joined BHS, but he's been part of the BISD orbit even before he was a city council member. No, I'm sorry, school board member. Get it right, dummy. School board member. He's been on for 12 years, so he has a pretty good grip on what's going on.
Okay.
Also, Victoria is going to be on a week from Thursday. That'll be fun. And then have Otto himself, the great Otto, is going to get out of bed and talk to us next Tuesday. And he always brings prizes. That's always fun. So, Mr. Mayor, the floor is yours. What would you like us to know?
Pretty well went through everything.
Yeah.
What I'm working on right now, the bond is passed.
Mm-hmm.
We're working on getting things set up to move forward on it. I've asked to get some designs finished up, so if we do have a recession and price drops, we'll try to take advantage of that.
Let's hope. But
Okay.
yeah, but I think we're going to have a tough time economically speaking around the country now. I think Burleson and North Texas may be sheltered from that a little bit because we are growing and we are a desired area to live in. But we're not going to be unaffected.
I was at a meeting with some mayors the other day, and Maddie Parker was there, Mayor Parker from Fort Worth. I accused her of cramming growth down our throat. She's a sweetheart.
Yeah, this Mr. Khan is who you were referring to. He says, yes, it's me. And he has all these links and whatnot.
Sorry, okay.
Yeah, that's right. And it is a 501c3. And so, but he and I will communicate, and in the next few weeks, we'll see what we got. But that's a good program. As a son of a vet, like I said, I appreciate that kind of effort.
You question a lot of the nonprofits. This is somebody that we vetted. They're long-term. They're not outrageous on their salaries.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm very pleased with this connection.
Well, you survived another episode, Mr. Mayor. Good for you.
I'm a nervous wreck.
I know, just waiting,
Just sitting down I start vibrating.
Well, who don't? Because you never know what I'll just say. Oh, by the way, what are you going to do about those trains? So anyway, we'll see you in about a month. You get some rest and have fun at the next meeting.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it.